light at the end of the tunnel. We've made it to the harder ones, quote unquote. And so let's get after it. So I'm going to again look at, so I'm looking at number 22 here, and I'm going to look at the parentheses first, everything that's over here. And even, not even looking at the 3/2 yet, just looking in the parentheses. And I want to know, is there anything I can simplify about, for example, 25 over 16? Is there a common factor, or does that fraction simplify? And unfortunately, it doesn't. Okay, so it's still going to be like that. Whoops. Come on, thing. Still going to be like that. But what about x to the 4th over x squared? We've already done that before on this review. X to the 4th over x squared, we just subtract the exponents, we get x squared. So instead of raising each of these things to the 3/2 power, which is what we would have to do, let's just put them together and we just do 2 to the 3/2 power. We don't have to do two separate things. Okay, now we've got y to the 1st and y to the 7th. Okay, we could subtract those, like 1 minus 7 is -6, so that's a y to the -6 up here. And then we're like, oh, but we don't want negative, so we bring it down to the bottom. I don't do that really. I just look wherever there's the most, that's where they're going to end up, because this is a y in the numerator and 7 y's in the denominator. 6 and 7. So one of them will cancel out, and I'll just have 6 left in the denominator, so y to the 6th. Right? It makes a whole lot more sense to me to do that than to subtract them, get a negative number, then put it in the denominator. Just do 7 minus 1. And since there were more in the denominator, I know that there need to be in the denominator now. And all of that is raised to the 3/2. Okay, so moving on. Again, still have not touched the 3x to the 5th y squared. I'll circle that in red. We'll do that later. We're going to bring it down here in a little bit. Okay, so still wanting to deal with this, I've got 25 to the 3/2 over 16 to the 3/2 times x. 2 times 3/2 is just 3. And then y, 6 times 3/2 is 9. So now I've got just one little x and one x to the 3rd and one y to the 9th. Those are already as simple as they're going to get. But I can do something to this. Okay. So remember, the bottom is a root. What's the square root of 25? 5. What's 5 to the 3rd? 125. Now let's look at 16. What's the square root? Because that's the bottom of the fraction is a 2. Square root of 16 is 4. And what's 4 to the 3rd? 64. So this is actually equal to, let's go back to that other color, 125 x to the 3rd over 64 y to the 9th. Now I think we're finally ready to bring in the other fraction here. Okay, because this one is as simple as we're going to make it. So we're going to bring it over here. Times 125 x to the 3rd over y to the 9th. How do we multiply fractions? We just multiply straight across the top and straight across the bottom. Oh, I need a 64 down here, don't I? Okay, so 3 times 125 is 375. X to the 5th times x to the 3rd is x to the 8th. 64 is down in the bottom, and y squared to the 9th, that's y to the 11th. We add those exponents. All right, and then you're thinking 375 over 64. Does that simplify? We're going to check on it. Go to 375 divided by 64. Then you hit math, enter, enter. And it tells you, hey, that's as simple as that fraction is going to get. So our final answer is actually 375 x to the 8th over 64 y to the 11th. Okay, so that's 22. These are on here because they really test just your mastery of exponents and can you handle, a lot of it. But if you look at like number 23, you just break it down into numerous problems. So you could look at all of this first. Or you could look just inside these parentheses. Don't worry about the square. And simplify everything in here. And so basically you're going to turn it into numerous problems that are like these ones up here that aren't that bad. And you're just going to do them in pieces until eventually you get it as simple as it could possibly be. Boom. And I didn't work it all out on the video, but that's all how you do it, and you get to this final answer if you were wanting to check that one. All right, a couple more videos. We got 24 and 25 coming up.